Metro FM has been your trusted portal for communication and broadcasting for almost 40 years. And we certainly hope someday we'll also be able to celebrate 37 years of Metro FM Off Air. Welcome to hashtag Metro FM Off Air with myself, Ayabonga Cawe. And speaking of Metro FM, we saw it fit to launch this platform by not only reflecting on where we've come from, but from whom we've come. And we're here to celebrate 3 different eras of this broadcasting giant that is the mighty Metro FM. As a teacher used to often say to me, it's always best to start from the beginning. Kuthiwa indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili, and I certainly have the honor to be among giants. Of course, we do stand on the shoulders of these giants, and those who join me today certainly fit into that category. I'm joined by 2 think tanks that have contributed to what Metro FM and the SABC are today. Mr. Zolisile Mapipa joins me today, and also joined by somebody who is no stranger to any of us. He still enjoys a lot of greatness, fanfare, attention, and he's the accompaniment to all of our Sundays. And he does that the same way he did when he started on air 37 years ago. You know exactly who I'm talking about. It's the inimitable Mr. Wilson B. Nkosi. Bra Wilson.
Nkosi Mhlekazi.
Kunjani Nkosi yami?
Ndiyaphila Mhlekazi, akho nto unjani wena Mhlekazi?
Ndiyazama. The last 37 years.
Yes, sir.
How did it start for you on Metro FM? Or should I say Radio Metro?
Yes.
Did you have an audition tape? Did you send a demo? Did you stand in a queue? How did it start?
It's been an interesting journey. 37 years is a long time. And so we go back to the beginning. When I learned that in life you have to earn your keep, I thought I should be a broadcaster. So this is a carefully chosen path of human endeavor for me.
Sure.
A career choice that was carefully chosen. And I expressed that wish. When I was doing my final year in high school, I wrote to the SABC and I made them know that I would like to be a broadcaster. This was in 1985, and they had nothing going at the time. But they responded. One Mr. Tace Lowe, who was the general manager of the Nguni and Sotho services, responded to say, we don't have anything at the moment, but in the event that something should come up, we will let you know. And as fate would have it, in May 1986, I received a letter from him informing me that there will be a radio station to be launched by the SABC called Radio Metro, and that if I'm interested in an audition, I could phone him and arrange for an audition. And I did exactly that. Wow. And so I came to Johannesburg, and Mr. Hadebe, the founding station manager of Radio Metro, interviewed me. He conducted that audition. I was employed on the strength of potential. I'll have you know, Mhlekazi, when they signed me up for 3 months. And they said, well, if you don't make it within 3 months, we'll ask you to leave. It's been 37 long years. It is sounds and stuff like that. It is the State of the Nation Entertainment Address. The name is Wilson B. Nkosi. Welcome to it.
But Zolisile, let me bring you in here, because Bra Wilson, a young African boy coming from KwaZulu-Natal, sends a letter in 1985. I can imagine so many other things that were happening in 1985 to the Suid-Afrikaanse Aidsai Corporatie at that time. Talk to us about the environment within which Metro emerges due to the competitive pressure arising from, you know, Capital Radio, Bop Radio, and many other radio currents commercially that were emerging from the former homelands.
Remember that at that time, the SABC was a state broadcaster. So they didn't really, I mean, the people at the top in terms of government, it didn't really matter to them what the market wanted. What they wanted is what it is that they wanted the audiences or the population to feel and to think. So it was a way of controlling and getting people to feel in a particular way. I'll tell you what. Firstly, the stations were solely for the white population. Then when war started in 1945, and I'm saying ended in 1945.
Second World War.
Yeah, Second World War. In fact, when it started in 1939, they had to find a way of convincing the black population to say, look, Hitler is bad. So what other way than to give them radio stations? So it was to manipulate the minds of the audiences. Thereafter, what happened was it was the Balkanization of South Africa into homelands. So Bob, in fact, Transkei started being a sort of a homeland, and they had their own radio station. It was Radio Transkei as well as Capital Radio. And believe you me, Capital Radio was a thorn in the flesh of the government.
But Zolisile, what was possible in the commercial radio stations in the homelands that was not possible in the Eidsai Corporation?
Yes, I'll tell you. Remember that music carries a message. Then there was certain music that could not be played on SABC radio stations.
Because of censorship.
Because of censorship. Music by Hugh Masekela, music by Miriam Makeba, music by Bob Marley, and all of those. If that kind of music has a message for the black people to say, we want liberation, then that was not the kind of music that should be played at the SABC. So hence the opportunity for Radio Bob to open its own music radio station. And by the way, the other only commercial radio station, music radio station, was not here. It was in Swaziland. SMR, Swazi Music Radio. It was playing from Swaziland, beaming into South Africa. Then, it's only then that the SABC said, whoa, there's a market here. So let's do our own radio station. And that's why the Urban Contemporary of Metro was formed.
And that's why they called you, Bra Wilson. You come to Johannesburg a few days later after you received this letter.
That's correct.
What do you find?
Well, I find a place that I'm not familiar with. I was seeing a studio for the very, very first time. And you know how auditions are conducted. I'm giving a script. One segment, I'm to be a news reader. And then I'm to present a music show. I'm to be the weatherman, because at the time we did everything. You know, as a DJ, manning your slot. You read the news, you read the sport bulletins, you played the music, you did everything. And so I was given a script, and I went through it, and the powers that be took it from there.
So you already are familiar with the Swazi Music Radio and many of the other currents of radio that Metro is trying to, I guess, emerge and compete with?
Well, there was no Radio Metro at the time, but I'm a consumer of radio. I love broadcasting in general, but I love Metro FM even more. I did then as I do today.
Why have you stayed for so long?
Because I have nowhere else to go.
No one else wants you?
No. Here's the answer. This is the honest answer. I'm a child of Metro FM.
Sure.
That is the long and short of it. I grew up here. I came at the age of 19. I don't know any other radio home other than Metro FM.
Wow.
And I think the market loves you as well.
No pressure to my employer.
Well, they are here and they are listening to you. But Zolisile, certainly for our generation, often the interest is in trying to understand the early days at Metro in the context that Metro found itself in. 1986 is probably 3 or 4 years before 1990 and the unbanning of the political organizations, and then a few years later, of course, the democratic breakthrough in 1994. It's, you know, the moment of bubblegum, later on Kwaito. Where does Metro or Radio Metro fit into that for many urban South Africans at that time?
Metro, because of its signal, the footprint, it became an instant hit because it could reach all the urban population of South Africa. Secondly, it's because of the format. I mean, it was the first time that a radio station catered for Africans, you know, in terms of R&B, in terms of the music. And I mean, you know, need I say it that Africans, they really love their music. then when it started, when I joined, which was 1996, it was just immediately after 1994. So there were a lot of things, you know, that was expected of Metro, not just to entertain in terms of music, musically, you know, but also in terms of carrying the aspirations of the young urban population, you know. So in my view, Metro has never defaulted. It has always been there in the hearts of its audiences in terms of manifesting what it is, what are the aspirations of the young black South Africans.
Yeah. It certainly does continue, Bra Wilson, to be that platform that, you know, not only encapsulates the aspirations of young urban black people in general, and even, I guess, South Africans. But I'm quite interested, if you look back, I mean, you've been here since day one. You're a day one. If you had just ukuhlanganisa squad sakho of Metro, just your first 11, your starting 11, who would you include in that starting 11 and why?
As in now?
No, from 1986.
So we had a galaxy of stars when we started. I mean, heavyweight broadcasters. I mean, you name the Treasure Shabalalas of this world.
Yes.
Lawrence Dube, now Tlhabane, Tim Modise, Shadow Twala, Boogie Harry, Lucky Dube, Mishma Petla, Sheila D, the favorite Grand Shakwane, Tom Patswe, and then entered one Bob Mapena.
The chairman.
He changed the complexion of the station altogether, but altogether. It was something we had never heard before on Metro FM. There was only one Bob Mapena. He led the way, and we all followed.
Don't flatter me.
Okay.
You have a nice weekend, okay?
You too, bye.
Bye. But Zolisile, let's talk just briefly. I mean, you joined in 1996, you left in 1998. It's a very interesting time, not just for Metro FM, but for the SABC as well. Talk to me about what commercially things looked like at that point in time. What kind of partnerships were coming into Metro that weren't there before, and what new ground commercially were you guys breaking?
When I arrived, Metro, I think it was the second in terms of revenue generation of the SABC stable. It just soon, you know, blossomed in terms of revenue generation. I can safely say Metro reached, I mean, 100 million, you know, in a
100 million in the 90s?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was an instant hit. But there were challenges, hey? When the new political dispensation started, then there were licenses that were given out. There were younger radio stations in terms of the target audience, and there were older stations targeting the older. So Metro had to decide where to position themselves, and that is where I think Metro really killed it, because Metro said, we are a youth station, we are an urban youth station for the upwardly mobile target audience, and we're going to defend this target audience. And that target audience is the one that's very, very, you know, that's working, and they've got a disposable income. You know, they may not be LSM 16, but they've got disposable income.
Why was that important at the moment where you started to see more competition?
It was important because remember that the SABC was a monopoly. Right? It was a state broadcaster. Come 1994, it was no longer a monopoly. So things were just open up, you know, with the introduction of the likes of Capital Radio, you know, and other radio stations, you know, and other radio stations that are still in existence right now. So it was important because, remember, Metro FM had to subsidize the rest of the SABC. So there is no other expectation in terms of Metro from the SABC is to make money.
And Metro FM is the breadwinner at the SABC.
Still the cross-subsidy.
Of course it is, yeah.
Wow.
We print money here.
You print money here.
We've got the printing money machines.
I love
here.
when you say that, because if you say we print money and the bosses are here, it might be a good time to start asking for raises.
But remember, they have to subsidize other SABC departments.
Fair. Okay, all right. Bra Wilson, I want us to talk about two things here.
Yes, Mhlekazi.
The one is, I think, to the point that Upudzolisile is raising, which is the moment you started to get new licensed competitors coming in, you had to begin to clearly redefine what your niche was as Metro.
Correct.
But similarly, this is happening in an environment where there are significant technological shifts. It's not just that you're no longer playing long play records anymore, but you know, you're moving into the digitization of music as a mainstay of what we do here at Metro. But in addition to that, there are massive technological shifts that are bringing in new forms of competition for a lot of this money that makes us the breadwinner here at the SABC. Your assessment of how Metro FM has dealt with that?
Very well. I mean, things happen at a push of a button, unlike before. Technology is great, but it must be handled with great care. I mean, you know, you think of the internet, you can't just go with everything that you find in there. You still have to do a lot of work. And I think as far as technology and the way Metro FM has navigated its way through technology, it'll be full marks, it'll be 10 out of 10. We've kept up with the times.
On that note, I think Metro can still play a more aggressive role, because remember, Metro is at the forefront of the youth, and those are the people who are early adopters in terms of technology. And I think in this space, Metro FM should actually take on full speed in terms of making it a point that it's available where its audiences are. Because it's not that now you need to switch on a transistor radio or you switch on your radio in the car.
So device-wise,
it should be everywhere. It should be everywhere.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Commercially, that I would think introduces a new dynamic. I mean, if you could only open a transistor in an urban space, and now on my phone I can access, you know, Metro FM in Leyte Frere somewhere, it does open up new avenues and vistas of commercial possibility.
Of course. And the good thing is that, which is what advertisers should understand, if audiences, Metro FM audiences, listen on their cell phones or on their earphones, then it means that person is actually knowingly listening to Metro. It's not just by the choice. It's out of choice that they have put in that earpiece in their ears to listen to Metro.
Fascinating, fascinating.
And who can blame them?
Yes.
Well, you can't, because you know, we give here a very quality and expensive product.
That's true.
And talking about, I guess, the many generations and eras you've managed to witness, you've also had a chance to induct a lot of people here. And I'm quite interested, I guess, the moment where Metro FM introduces somebody called Glenn Lewis. Take us back there.
Oh, I've got time for Glenn. In fact, Glenn, I think, joined us in 1995, but I had met him 8 years prior, in 1988. Wow. At the Randista show.
So he wasn't an actor, a DJ, or anything?
No, he was with Radio Toyando, the Big T at the time, in the then vendor.
Yes.
And so when he came to Radio Metro at the time, he was home. It was familiar surroundings, also because he knew the people around. I mean, Bob Mabena had joined before him.
Yes.
So Glenn is... I've got time for Glenn.
Now listen to this. At Metro, Glenn was doing 12 to 3.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Bob left. He joined another station.
The other one.
Yeah, the other one. So I asked Glenn, please do the breakfast show. So reluctantly, you know, Glenn, reluctantly he does the breakfast show. So then one day, there's a gentleman who works at the technical department, quite an elderly gentleman. He says to me, and it's amongst senior management, he says, yeah, but what have you done? I mean, now you've put in Glenn there, I can't understand him. Then somebody says, and I was still flabbergasted to respond. Then this gentleman said, but you can't expect to understand him. You are not the target market.
Exactly.
And that was it. That was it.
That settled
He
it.
was done. He was done. And Glenn did his show.
I think it's fascinating that Glenn has still remained true to the target market, even when he's no longer part of the target market.
That's true. He's got great talent. I mean, Metro FM, Radio Metro has attracted really, really great talent over the years. This is a fact. I don't know of any DJ or broadcaster who doesn't want to be on Metro FM. I don't know of any. Maybe there is one there, I haven't met them. I have yet to meet any DJ who is not on Metro FM and would not like to be on Metro FM, because that is the zenith.
Lovely. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
No, thank you, Mhlekazi, for having
Of course,
us.
of course.
Delighted to be here.
Is that it?
Yes.
Oh, it's been a tiring morning, people. I've had a very long weekend. I traveled like 2,500 kilometers this weekend. Now you can imagine what I'm going through. The great one is tired.
All
I
right.
seriously need to rest. Please, if we had a meeting today, please forget about it. It's not gonna happen.
The person who holds the meeting, I don't
Gotta
think is
go
here.
home, home, home. I gotta go home. You know that song.
Home, I gotta go home. TTA, that practice, eh? That opera thing,
Yeah,
training.
it's working for us.
Yeah.
Nobody's got the right stomach.
But he doesn't have airbags, he's got air luggage.
It's a paparazzi figure. It's a paparazzi figure, man. Where do you think that voice comes from?
From the chest.
You say he's got what?
No, no, no.
And then
Air luggage. Nice one, funny features.
Metro FM, ever the innovative platform that it continues to be to this day, introduced a merger between television and radio. It's the phenomenon we've come to know today of television stars becoming radio stars and vice versa. It's something that was long pioneered by Metro FM and SABC1. And joining me today, one of those pioneers, the teddy bear of the airwaves, Glenn Lewis. Brother Glenn,
Most electrifying
how
one.
you doing?
Ndaba mina.
Ndovuwa,
Hayi.
ndovuwa.
Worry yami ukuthi kuba mandi apha.
Kuba mnandi apha xa.
Ewe.
And kuzawuba mnandi basigezanga. Basigezanga kuzawuba mnandi. Glenn,
Yes.
how did it all start for you on Metro?
When I was in Mufftown, so me and Bob used to share an apartment.
In Mufftown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Flat number 38. It was a notorious apartment. Probably. You must ask. Yeah. It was very notorious. Yeah. For well known for parties.
Sure, sure.
Even people, comrades who were running away from the police in South Africa, used to come to our apartment. Like
Wow.
Umbalula. Yes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Unkotli with that chap used to come to our house
Bala.
and eat our yogurt in the apartment. So, so obviously, when I was at Radio Bob, I was close with Bob. Bob was close with Ken Modise, who was the boss at the SABC, because I had come from Toyando and I joined Radio Bob. But you know, there was a time when I thought, I've reached the ceiling. So I reached out to the station. I was like, listen, I need a job. I need to come back home to Johannesburg, you know, because I left Joburg when I was very young.
Sure.
And the idea was to join Metro FM. And I wanted to improve. So obviously, I hooked up an appointment with Nkosi Radebe, who was the boss. First boss ever in my life to say to me, so how much money do you want to earn?
Wow. So they asked you, wait.
Yeah.
Step back.
Yeah,
You leave Bob.
yes.
You've hit a ceiling.
Yeah, I've hit a ceiling. yes.
You, through your connects and
Yeah.
through your circle of friends,
Yeah.
get a chance to speak to Brakos.
Yeah. I
And he
come
says to
Joburg,
you,
yeah.
how much money do you want?
Yeah.
Like a soccer player, what's your sign-on
Yeah,
bonus?
because it never happens with DJs. I think there's a few DJs who have been asked that question. So he asked me, you're going to do 12 to 3? How much do you want? You know, that's like 1995. I think I must have said 16,000.
16,000.
I normally never talk about numbers, but I think that's what I said.
If you could look at it today, what's 16,000 in
I am not
1995?
sure. It does not matter.
Okay.
But
What
it
could you
was-
buy with
it-
16,000?
It was 16,000 rand. Well, most of the money ended up on policies and me buying properties.
Policies, as in funeral policies.
Not I as a funeral, retirement. Because you know, as a DJ,
You never know.
you're a freelancer.
Fair.
You know, you have no allowance, car allowance. So the friend that I went to school with grabbed me quickly when I came to Joburg and, hey, whether you're making a lot of money, I'm going to get you policies. So he got me like 4 retirement annuities. And I think I was paying about 6,500 and I used to cry every month. But they told me like, this is good for you because you don't have benefits. You will need this money one day. So yeah, that's how I got to Metro FM doing a 12 to 3 slot.
Okay. And we'll come back to how you did 12 to 3 and then went to breakfast.
Yeah.
But let me bring in Mr. Top 30, Mr. Top 40, Sammy T.
What up, puppy?
You know, Sammy, I was telling you off air.
Yes.
I remember watching SABC Encore
Right.
and seeing you just outside the studio, linking to Studio Mix or Technics Heart of the Beat.
Yeah.
And then seeing the same happening on Metro during the pandemic,
Yeah.
where there was a simulcast with SABC One and Metro FM. You guys pioneered that in the 90s. How did that come about?
It was in the 2000s, and the idea was, look, we have these resources, we have this capacity, we have this unique musical feature on television. Why aren't we linking it up to radio? Radio's got a massive access in terms of reach, because now it's obviously the cheapest form of communication entertainment that people have access to, and it can pretty much get us even more mileage as the television show as well as a radio show. And then that merger came about seamlessly. The idea was simply, look, let's try and see what happens, and it worked.
When you say it worked, commercially?
Yeah, my radio show blew up to, I think, 1.4 million listeners every week. And that's the Saturday show. And that was pushed by the Friday show, which is the Studio Mix Techniques Heart of the Beat crossover. So there was actual, in fact, I think our entire station went up at the time. Yeah. So it was that synergy.
Yeah. And what's the sound at that time that's dominating the top 30, the top 40, and?
Predominantly R&B and hip hop. And that's on the top 40 on the Saturday. But obviously on the Friday night, we then look at our local hot hits at the time. That is what we're, looking at some of the big charts, and inspired by this man, because he was busy in the club scene. So you kind of knew what was happening on the ground. I mean, we were all there, but now bringing it out to TV also helped. So you could see the results. That's the best.
Sure. You are on the other side. Talk to me about how Technics Heart of the Beat comes about, but also more importantly, how for you that was either complementary to what you were doing in radio, or probably, I guess, required a bit more of you.
Well, the truth is, all I wanted to do was to be on radio and play at clubs.
I don't want any trouble.
Edward.
And then there was these people from Studio Mix who also asked me, come and audition, because I hate makeup. I hate to have to put on
hot
clothes.
in here.
So I don't like TV. But eventually I ended up, because when I was on radio, I didn't get a lot of recognition. The people who recognized me are people who listen to the show but come to my clubs as well. Then TV, obviously, which was complimentary, obviously complicated my life. I could not go out anywhere without people recognizing me. One day, because I love wildlife. So I remember one day I went to the Kruger National Park, and these people at the Kruger National Park started chasing me, saying in Shangan,
Malume Tshepo, maponisa qeta usiya restraining order. Can you believe it? Bare mamatle court usani.
Maponisa hape.
Ke kopa o tle as soon as possible, too.
Okay, ke atandela.
My life became complicated, but TV and radio was incredible, for both, obviously, for both mediums. Radio benefited and TV benefited. Like Sam is telling you, the numbers were crazy. Imagine a Saturday show having 1.2 million listeners. It's not like people didn't have a choice. People had a choice. But because of that, the two platforms coming together, they actually helped each other to reach out to more audiences.
Your sense of whether listener habits have changed in that period. I mean, that period where you're getting chased around and people are saying, it's him.
Yeah.
To where you are now. Do you still get swarmed? And do you still get a sense that people are...
Well, I do get a bit of attention. Especially
bit.
if I go and buy a takeaway. The drive-ins, people still recognize my voice, but not so many people, recognize me, which is like... which is fine. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I still get a lot of recognition. Yeah, a lot has changed, obviously, over the years with the introduction of social media. Social media has also helped radio to increase audiences, because it also enables you to would target people who normally would not listen to you.
Sammy,
Yes.
for you, the simulcast kind of thing must have also opened up a lot of exposure to you, and people would recognize you. To what degree was being on a platform like a Metro critical to your off-air success?
I'd already been on TV before, but I was not doing music, right? I was doing something else, a game show on some other network. And then to now be doing music and people recognizing you, I was being required for my top 40 now to be traveling the country a lot more. I mean, I don't know, I'm trying to think which part of South Africa didn't I go to? I was constantly on outside broadcasts in different parts of the country, whether in Limpopo, in the Eastern Cape, in the Western Cape, you name it, anyway. There are places I didn't even know existed. You know, I mean, there was Kwadwesi. Do you remember that?
Kwadwesi, yeah.
That's in Gqeberha.
Right, I was there. You know, and then we were there. I mean, the thing is, because we were visible, now it was easy to reach and touch the people, and it became their brand, it became their station because they could see it and feel it. And it wasn't that station in Joburg. No, it's like, oh, they're here. Oh my God, I want my T-shirt. I want my cap. I want my this. Now there was that relationship between the listener and the station was very personal, which was different from the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the other area one would argue that Metro has innovated. I mean, this integration of the on-air product with all manner of other things, the merch, the awards. To what degree would you say that in its formative stage was really built up during that time, the 90s and the early 2000s?
Look, I think we had a lot of very innovative leaders at the time. They were open to the idea and also curious. You'll find after the simulcast idea, then the awards came about, which was also a big thing.
What's up, Devin? Good to be here. This is my second home. I'd like to dedicate this award to, ever since I wanted to be in the entertainment industry, my priority was to be a radio DJ. And while I was in Mabatu, I got inspired by people like Vinny Da Vinci, DJ Christos, Kanyani. There's guys in Devon, Sox, Tira, Sianda, Reddy D. Those are the people who inspired me, and up to this day, I'm still learning to be the best club DJ. Thank you so much for your support. Peace.
And again, it was feeding off this visibility, you know. And I remember there was a time we went around, we drove from Joburg, we went through Bloemfontein. Did we end up in the Eastern Cape?
Cape Town. Well, I did that trip, from Joburg to the Western Cape.
You know what I mean? And we're doing visibility. Now, it wasn't just my show now, the whole team, right? And I think there's a massive picture somewhere. I don't know where it is, with the whole team.
Who was on that team at the time?
You had my favorite dude, Ike Pasha.
Yes.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
You had the musical doctor, Vusilitswalo. You had Shadow Twala. The party animal.
Hold up, you're talking about a different era. That's your era before I joined.
Oh, so wait, this is 96, 95 through to the 2000s.
Yes,
okay.
yes. Oh, your era, who was
We'll
there?
come back to the early 2000s.
No, let's
Yeah,
start
no.
there.
So you had Boogie Harry, who was like a mind-blowing DJ. And many other people. It
wasn't Eddie part of the team then?
Yeah, Eddie. Yeah, so I actually met Eddie Zondi in Mafikeng. That guy wanted to be on radio so much that a lot of people that don't know that he started with Bob TV. So Eddie used to have a slot on weekends on Bob TV. So every week he used to travel from Joburg using a taxi.
Every weekend?
Yeah, every week. Yeah, once a week to go and record the show in Mafikeng, come back to Johannesburg. That's how passionate Eddie Zondi was, about radio.
So that's the 90s.
Those are the 90s.
Early 2000s?
Early 2000s, Romeo I think was managing the station, Romeo Kumalo. T-Boz was doing breakfast with Nandipa, with him, Stratham, the late. And
Azania.
then, Azania wasn't there yet. 9 to 12, Kenya was 12 to 3. You were doing Drive. And then, I can't remember, what show was Ice doing?
Just as breakfast. He did breakfast.
We moved from T-Boss to Justice.
He did breakfast as well. Yeah.
And then Dikobe was there, Ben. He would do breakfast on a Saturday morning.
Glenn Martins?
No, yeah.
Ben Dikobe.
Ben Dikobe.
Ben Dikobe.
Yeah. Then Glenn used to do another show on a Saturday between 12 and 3.
House call.
The mid-tempo. That's where the whole mid-tempo thing got, created and blew up.
Wow.
But look, you had a lot of very talented people. And you would see that in terms of the response, when we went around, like especially when we did the Eastern Cape tour, because that was like the whole team, and then you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh yes, and then we had the dramatic Mr. Masinga at one point.
Yeah, it's a chili yeah.
Trashed the whole
The fire starter.
Oh, good grief.
The fire starter.
No.
But I think for me, what's really fascinating is how many of the people you've just mentioned continue to be in radio in any one form or shape, which I think speaks volumes about to what degree this was a place where their affinity and love for radio really grew. But Glenn, how did you end up on Breakfast?
How did I end up on Breakfast?
Yeah, we had some interesting stories. How did you
always been reluctant to do a breakfast show because there's nothing as worse as waking up late when you're doing a breakfast show. Imagine the show starts at 6, you wake up at 10 minutes to 6. Do you know how confusing that is? Because you don't know, should I shower? Should I call the studio? Must I brush my teeth?
Yeah.
So it happened to me a couple of times, and I was always reluctant. I remember when Leslie Nhloko came to me and says, hey, Glenn, man, we want you to do breakfast. So I think then Melanie was expecting her second child. So I'm like to Leslie, Melanie is 3 months, what? We can't do, she can't be waking up in the morning. And they bought my bull. So we didn't do, no.
Okay.
Yeah, so they came back.
So they delayed?
Yeah, it was delayed, yes. Because I remember we were at the reception when Leslie said to me, listen, a breakfast show. I'm like, no, we can't. Melanie is injured. She's injured, she can't. And she can't, you need to give us time. So I think they came back like a year and a half later. And really,
and how did they persuade you?
Bazing your force again, man. Bazing your force, but this thing has to happen. Yeah, 18 months. You need to do breakfast. So eventually, yes.
Please always brush your teeth.
It's one of the basic rules of hygiene.
That's basic rules of hygiene. Wow.
Good morning.
What a session. Well, am I right?
Oh, you're so right.
Kabelo, say it. What is the problem?
Got a little bit of water on your right cheek, so you just need to wipe it off.
It's not Colgate, darling. Is it not? Hello?
You're a winner!
It is 10 minutes after 6. We are back in one piece on a Monday morning. Good morning. Welcome to the All Artists Breakfast Show. We've got an exciting show for y'all from start to finish. Take it, KB.
We started doing the show, and yeah, man, I've been very lucky in that broadcasting introduced me to a lot of good and intelligent people, especially the women that I've worked with, Unati, Melanie, Abomatona. I've always been surrounded by independent women. If I say one, they say 4. If I say one, they say 4. So yeah, that's what
I have no idea what that means.
Look, I mean, yeah, he clearly does.
So, and I've always told people, like Wilson was telling you that he has never met anyone who has said they don't want to join Metro. I always describe Metro as Bafana Bafana of the SABC. So everyone wants to associate with
the
Metro.
Entire country.
So I remember when Kena was in marketing, she used to cry and complain, hey, yes, minister, our Metro FM Music Awards. So ministers would call the office to say, we want tickets, because everyone wanted to be a part of the station, And yeah, Metro still is. I mean, just like any business, there's been competition.
Yes.
But the truth is, once the dust settles, we know who's the conqueror, who's the winner. And Metro is still standing. I mean, I always say to people, this is ridiculous. How does Metro win a station of the year 13, 14 years in a row when there's a youth station? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's ludicrous. So it basically shows you that people still love the station. And I don't know why I'm marketing this station when I don't work here anymore.
I was about to say, I mean, I'm quite interested because you still very much have pound seats in one of our sister stations.
It's 2000.
Yes, Radio 2000.
Yeah.
And I listened to your show, I must say.
Yeah.
Both of you, in a way, also have front row seats to the emerging trends in radio.
Yeah.
Which ones do you really think are fascinating trends that are probably going to be shapeshifters and really game changers in the next while?
You mean radio-wise?
Radio-wise, yeah. Because everyone says radio is going to die, but here we are.
You know what? Obviously, everyone talks about artificial intelligence. I remember those years ago when you went to a shopping mall.
Yeah.
There was you had your ticket. There was either a male or a female in that booth where you would pay for your parking, right? And it was just normal. And then suddenly, 3-5 years later, that person
is gone.
Doesn't exist. You use a computer. So, you know, everyone talks about artificial intelligence. And someone was saying the other day, yeah, maybe in the future, DJs will be replaced, there'll be computers. But you know what, Tina, we've got feelings, we've got emotions. So I don't think a computer can be better than me.
But I also want to ask you about somebody else you worked with.
Yeah.
And you spoke about her earlier on.
Yeah.
Melanie.
Yeah, Mel.
How did Mel come to Metro? She's still at Metro.
Yeah.
And really very much an institution for us here at Metro. So, your recollection of how she got to Metro and some of your experiences working in what was a fascinating team on that breakfast show.
So, you know, me and Mel are like brother and sister. So, you know.
Is it siblings?
Yeah, we're siblings, you know. She's light, I'm dark nyan.
Sure,
because you need balance in life. But I met Mel when I was working at Radio Bob.
Okay.
I was doing the breakfast show there because I think Bob had just left. So they asked me to do the breakfast show. I was reluctant once again, but I did the show. So one day, this gorgeous, lovely woman walks into the studio. Hi, my name is Mel. Hi, Glenn. Listen to you, I enjoy your show. And we start chatting. And Mel is like 16 or 17. And all Mel wanted to do was to be on TV. So she abandoned everything. I don't know how she got into Mafike, whether by train or by taxi, but I'm sure she'll tell you how she got there. Ended up in Maftown, and she had a TV gig. That's how she ended up on Studio Mix, because as always, the SABC, we poach. We are the main cities of broadcasting. The Abramoviches. Yes, of this business. So Melanie left me in Maftown to come to Johannesburg, and that's how we met. And then obviously we linked up again. She was my producer on Techniques Out of the Beat. Wow. She used to shout at me on set, which is okay. And yeah, she also worked with me on the breakfast show. So yeah.
Guys, it's been awesome.
Thank you, man.
Really appreciate it.
Who do we invoice?
Bill, Suid-Afrikaanse Eetsy Corporatie.
Oh, no way.
Here on Studio Mix, you can't walk away because we're playing such good music. What a question. Now, our next fax is from, well, let me read to you what it says. It says, I would like to send out the special request to these very special people in my life. To my twin daughters, Kim and Amy Geswint, and my mother, Mrs. Maria Kannemeyer, to the cover girls of Club 703, and last but not least, Peter and Celeste Nichot. We wish them a wonderful married life together. Apparently, they got married on the 20th of November. And she just basically said she loves the program and she'd love to hear the song from Taylor Dane, Can't Get Enough of Your Love. This is for you.
Oh, that's hilarious. Sweet, but hilarious.
Well, throughout its existence, Metro FM as a platform has always championed inclusivity and elevating women to their rightful place at the top of the organization. Be it being the first commercial radio station to have a female host as a flagship breakfast show, to a lineup that boasted some of the top female talent in the country, and the station to this day continues to champion inclusivity in the many roles that occupy the organization and many areas of employment. In fact, just as Glenn was saying, one of those top female talents that the station is proud to have is you, Mel. We were talking about Studio Mix earlier on and Techniques Out of the Beat, and Glenn was saying you used to also produce the show. Metro, for you, where did it all start? Many of us certainly have listened to Metro for as long as you've been at Metro.
Right.
But where did it all start for you?
So a fun fact, actually, is that when I moved to Johannesburg after working at Bob Broadcasting, I actually did work for Metro. I used to read the news on the weekend, and I did it for like a hot minute, like a year and a half, and then I stopped because it was interfering with my weekend partying. Keeping it real.
Very important.
Very important.
So why was that? Was it because just the times?
It was the time slot. It was a weekend time slot, kind of like that 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock news or something. And you know, you're at a braai, and I was like 18 in Johannesburg, 19 in Johannesburg, and I was just like, no, this is not going to work for me. So I left. But then my actual kind of coming back to the station happened in 2003. And that was very much a result of working with Glenn previously on television. And he used to ask me to come in and feature on a feature he had called Blackstone Read. So he would supply me with books, and I would come in kind of once a month or so and kind of review the books on air for him on his show. And after that, him and Leo Mane called me up and said, we're changing things around on breakfast, and we'd love it if you came through and you did the news on the All Access Breakfast Show with Glenn. Yes.
Thank you. That's about it. That's about it for the papers. Thank you, guys. Keep quiet now. All right. Thank you.
It is 6:30, and in the news this morning, local and international journalists have descended on Bloemfontein in anticipation of the testimony of former Transport Minister Mac Maharaj and Mo Sheikh at the Heifer Commission of Inquiry. And Limpopo Transport MEC Chenuani Farasani has sent out a stern warning to road users found guilty of deliberate traffic offences. I'll be back with more on those and other stories at 7 o'clock.
And Matona, let me bring you in, because you also, I guess, had your own first, right?
Yeah.
In a way where you were at the helm of a machine that certainly is one of the distinguishable, if not the most distinguishable, commercial radio brand in the country. The pressure coming into the job.
Wow.
Talk to us about that time, and ultimately, of course, your reflections as you headed out after a successful stint.
I think the biggest thing for me and the biggest pressure is that I don't think in the history of the station they'd taken so long to appoint somebody. So the interview process was 7 months.
Really? How many stages?
So it was about 3, the first interview, and then you go in with a additional brief, and then there were psychometric tests, and then another interview. I'm not sure what they were checking out, but one thing I know, that in fact Randall Abrams said to me on my first day is that we honestly didn't see you coming, because I was from internal, you know, I used to be the national sales manager, and because I suppose I had never really communicated to management what my plans were, they literally didn't see me coming.
But it made so much sense, because Matona was so passionate about the brand.
When I got that call, I remember I was sitting in my office at sales at about 7 at night, and I literally listened to the HR lady talking. But what I heard was, you know, it's just a courtesy call to say you didn't get it. So I said, oh, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I dropped the call. And then she had to call me again and say, excuse me, I just told you you got the job. I was like...
So wait, you heard something she didn't say?
I think because in my head I told myself that I didn't get it because it had taken so long, right? And I remember sitting in a meeting, because I was part of management, where HR unfortunately just mentioned that, you know, we needed to go, they needed to go externally to headhunt people. So, you know, already then, you know, you start telling yourself, like, manage expectations. So I was really just going through, you know, like the process. So I think I had an idea, I'd rehearsed what they're going to tell me when they call me. And so I clearly didn't hear what she said.
Wow.
I heard what I wanted to hear.
So what year is this, and who's in the lineup? What is the environment like?
So it's 2006. Never forget, it was the triple M of my life: marriage, my son, and Metro. And the station was kicking butt. I think we were sitting at about 6 million listeners. I mean, that is massive. I mean, of course, it's massive, but for a commercial radio station, semi-national, to have reached those heights was you know, amazing. And of course, you had, like, as you said, a fantastic lineup. Your Glens, your Mals, your Wilson B. Nkosis, your Azanias, I mean, you name them, they were on the station. And here was I, a girl from the Eastern Cape, going to be running the largest commercial radio station in the country, and from an SABC perspective, would be responsible for the revenue that it was set to achieve. So that was massive. And of course, as you can imagine, what people or other people don't know is that you then immediately have to start having a conversation with your family, right? Because for me, it was clear that things were going to have to change. And when you start getting, call it negative press, you know, about how you are going to kill Metro FM and blah, 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 blah. First, because you're female, and second, because you're an unknown. So I had those two things not going for me, but I think with the support internally, of the station management, the personalities, as well as family, you know, you just then start wearing blinkers. But as I've always said, I think it's those negative reports that actually made me stronger. Because in a way I had something to prove, not necessarily to them, but to myself as well.
Mel, I want to bring you in on that score because by the time you joined the breakfast team, you're already a household name. I mean, people recognize you on the streets. They'd seen you already on Studio Mix. And we often see sort of characteristically that women who are in show business or even just in the limelight tend to get a bit more flack than men would. How did you navigate that? I mean, Matona is saying she needed a good support structure around her to navigate that. How did you navigate that where you were hyper visible, in the spotlight, hyper exposed, if I can say that? And of course, this is also the age of the Shwashris and all of the pamphlet tabloids and so on.
Very much
How did you manage that?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think now it's almost indistinguishable for someone to have a radio and a television and a social media career and all these sorts of things. But back then, they were two very distinctive things. And I do remember people saying, what does she think she's going to be doing on radio about me? Because I had a television background, it was a case of what does she think she's going to be doing on radio? And like Matona says, you take that stuff and you use it for fuel. You use it to propel yourself forward. And I think I particularly was like, because it's an industry that I know nothing about, but I do approach it, or I approached it rather like live television. You've got one shot to get it right. You don't get to go back and do it again. You don't get to re-record it or be, oh, sorry guys, that link was terrible.
Matona, let me bring you in here because I think for the pair of you, there's a longevity discussion.
You're saying we're old.
I'm not saying you're old. I'm saying
very carefully.
I'm saying you've been at this for long enough, and I'm quite interested in understanding, I guess, the motivations behind staying for as long as you have. A lot of people don't stay in their jobs, even when they love their jobs, for as long as you have. And you, Matona, have also, I guess, come back as a return soldier. Talk to us about that, and I guess not just Metro, but also the SABC as a space.
I think when it started, as I said, my love for Metro started when I was 13, right? And I was very clear, a girl was very focused in terms of where I wanted to. So where I started, my way in was through sales. And I eventually got to run the station, which had been my ultimate goal. And I left the SABC, I think it was like, I'd been here for like 13, 14, but I'd been here forever. And when I left, I knew I needed to go and explore what is outside of the SABC. And of course, that stood me in good stead because I got to work with other broadcasters. I got to work for the public sector. So when the call came for me to come back, at first I was like, not sure, I don't think really want to go to sales again. But upon reflection, I had to go back to when I left. I knew that one day I would come back. And perhaps I was not sure where. I just assumed we were back to the broadcasting side of things, and when I did a bit of reflection, I realized that perhaps this is the way to come back in again. How it all started many moons ago.
Why has Metro remained the choice?
It doesn't get bigger than this. You can look at other stations who maybe have a lot more noise going on around them, but when you look at numbers, I think when you look at impact, when you look at who just consistently over 37 years is the station people continue to talk about, it's Metro FM. And for me, I think that has been the thing, is that I've been able to maintain a career on primetime, daytime radio on Metro FM for 20 years, you know, and so that's something I'm really proud of. But it is that there's nowhere else I would want to be. And part of that speaks to, I think, what Matona was saying about, I'm a big believer in the public broadcast and the role it plays in this country and how we get to impact, educate, entertain, inform, influence people. And I think it's a responsibility that we need to take seriously. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm still here. And I've had a lot of fun along the way. It's not all very serious. I've had a lot of fun along the way. You know, Metro has allowed me to travel the world and interview presidents, and you know, so I've had a great time.
I find it so interesting that for many people who have grown up listening to the broadcaster, you probably feel like a sibling to them. Like if you're standing in a queue and you like just speak, there's a affinity, there's a familiarity that people often have. Do you come across that?
It's so funny you say that. Literally yesterday there was a tweet that someone kind of put out that said, when I kind of do my hi, this is Melanie, Bala, and this is Metro FM News or whatever, they were like, it feels like home, because they grew up listening to the station. And I love that. I love that. I love the fact that people would come up to me and say to me, you know, we love the way we love how you kind of let us know about very serious things, whether it's people's passings or, you know, whatever it is. And it's about being a voice of assurance, a voice of steadfastness.
That even if the news is bad.
Even if the news is bad. It's that voice of steadfastness that people know, okay, this is a real thing. We're taking it seriously, you know. So, yeah.
Matona, let me bring you in, because Glenn and Sammy earlier on were talking about how, you know, and I think even Zolisile and Abra Wilson as well, were talking about how Metro cross-subsidizes everybody else. And I was like, oh, wasn't too sure about that. But I think the point is Metro has also been a commercial success for the public broadcaster. And I want you to maybe hone in a bit more on that. What it was in the 2000s when we're hitting around 5-6 million, and what has changed in the sales landscape in terms of who is buying space, and also the other competing priorities they have. You know, they're spending now in areas that weren't there during that time. Talk to us about that.
So I'm not going to speak on behalf of Sammy and Budzoli, but the one thing that they've got right is that for years, Metro FM has been what I used to term the cash cow for the radio portfolio, right? And continues to do so fantastically well. And I think that is as a result of its programming, its marketing efforts. I mean, all of these things make it easy for us now as salespeople to go out there and sell the brand. What has changed now, having, you know, come back and being on the sales seat, is the landscape has changed. There's so much competition. We're now fighting for just to occupy space in the mind of the consumer. So it's no longer just competing radio stations. It's, excuse me, all media platforms, entertainment, and all sorts, right? So from a sales perspective, of course, with the assistance of the stations, various stations within the SABC, is to make your product that one which, you know, the client wants to buy into. So, because they're no longer just buying radio. They buy everything that will come with the Metro FM. So their social media presence, their digital presence, their eventing, their this, their that. So from a packaging perspective, that's what we have to do.
So
is
it's end-to-end product.
Integrated solution to the client. So when we sell, we just don't sell the radio aspect of things. It's everything that, in fact, to a point, we even sell the Mels and the Wilsons and package it all together. And that's why it's so important to ensure that the personalities that are on air hold some sort of gravitas. Otherwise you're going to fall flat on your face.
You've managed talent, Matona.
Oh wow.
Let's talk about the funniest, the most daring, and the most demanding. You don't have to mention names,
but you can. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, so I'm going to have to think.
And you don't have to avoid current company as well.
I think the most quite humorous would have to definitely be, whilst I was managing, because obviously it does at times cross over in terms of people, would be the late Eddie Zondi. Eddie just had stories for days. And Eddie had an ability of taking a very serious matter and really just make, like, you'd be telling you something serious, whether it's bothering him or bothering another colleague, whether it be Wilson or whomever. And he was a big one for standing up for people's rights. But the way he would put it forward, and he had a sense of ease with management, like, you know, barge into your office and just say the most serious thing in the most funniest of ways, you know, may his soul rest in peace. I think he's one of the funniest. I think the likes of Wilson has got this very serious demeanor, but at times some of the things you really listen to him and you have to, I think at times, just level up your intelligence, whatever, you'd get him. Like at times you'd laugh at things and he was actually like telling you quite, you know. In terms of demanding, we've had some interesting characters, some of us that are still at the station. And I think he was not, for me, I can name it, Touch was not demanding like you always had to be at your wit's end. He was demanding because he's so creative. And he was always just like 5 steps ahead. And one of the things that I had to do when I came in is to realize that I'm the leader, but I'm not necessarily the creative, and I'm not the star, because at times I think we easily confuse that, right? And allow them, the personalities, to be the stars, and then pull them as and when you needed to. So for instance, one of the things with Touch was to, when you want to be serious, is to say, you know, I want to speak to Thabo Molefe, like,
not Thibaut
and not Thibaut Touch, you know. And then when you want to spur him on, you want to, you know, speak to Touch, you know. I think from a sales perspective, like being a sales manager, another similar type of personality was Fat Joe. And I think at times grossly misunderstood, but he just was just on another level. And it's just how the poor program managers to manage him, you know, and that's what happens, you know. And I remember a lot of, like in one interview, people asking me like, you're working with the likes of Glenn Louis and your Wilson Nkosis and your Robert Marawas, like those people are huge names, and your Mels, and how do you manage? Because to them it's like, you must not like sleep. And I was like, interestingly, those are the ones that are the least of your problems, right? They are the younger kids, kids that you need to manage. And once you take the stance of, you have to be the motherly figure, even though you were much younger than them. And as well, as I said, just stay in your row. You know, just be mindful of your role in it all and allow them to shine.
You've worked with many teams, different time slots. You're not working with machines, you're working with people. And people have their own kinks, they have their own subjective things about them, some fundamental and some you can kind of tolerate. How have you navigated that? And how, in some ways, has that changed you?
So teams are such an interesting dynamic. You know, it's people that some you may know from before, like a Glenn I'd known since, you know, Mafikeng, but other people you kind of get thrown together and you don't know anything about them. And you have to very quickly kind of learn how to get along, because those are the people you're going to see every single day for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. And it's such an interesting dynamic, because what I find is you become almost like a little family. Because you're together for those 3 hours, it's really intense. You get together, you bond, you're sharing kind of everything about everything, not only on air and on the script and current affairs, but in your personal life. You know, if you come to work and you're having a crappy day, you know, you need to be able to tell your team, hey guys, today's not the one.
It's not sure.
It's not the one. You know, I had a fight with my man last night, or whatever it is, right? And they, in turn, hold you up on those days, right? And vice versa. When they're having an off day, you hold them up. And so it's a really interesting dynamic. I'm incredibly, incredibly lucky. And I know I say this and people may not believe me, but every single team I've worked with has been incredible. We've gotten on, there've been no issues. And that's from working with Glenn in the beginning, on the All Access with, we were with KB Ngagani as well back then. And then I worked with Azza and with Tabiso Tema as well. Then I worked with Pearl Modiadie and Thomas Msangana, and now I'm with Lerato and Pro. Like literally, I've worked with the best people on the station.
You also worked with Bob Mabena, and I must say, I mean, I got to work with Bob in the latter part of his life, and I think he's one of the few people that I've come across who really was like a superstar. Multi-generationally. You know, like he was a superstar for my parents, superstar for like kids much younger than I am. How was that for you? Because you also at some stage worked in management.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that was an interesting transition, you know, because it's different when he's your boss, you know. We kind of came up together on Studio Mix at the same time. We were figuring ourselves out at the same time. You know, we were young kids from Pretoria, I always say, having fun, like we had the best fun. But then jump forward years later and he's now the boss. It was interesting, you know. I think we'd always kind of had a sibling relationship. So I would be real with him if he'd asked me my opinion on something or if I had an issue with something. I think I did feel like I could say to him, bruh, like, what's this? Or, you know, but obviously in a respectful way because of his position. But sometimes, and even sometimes calling him out, you know, where he'd say, oh, but we can't do this. I'd be like, you know what it's like to be on the other side of this mic. You know what it's like to be on the other side of this mic. And now that you're in management, you can't say, oh, but guys, no, like try harder, you know. And I think that was the joy of it, was that because we were like siblings, I was able to do that. But like you say, a superstar that we will not see the likes of again very soon. Yeah.
Another stalwart, Nothemba Madumo.
OG. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, we go way back. That's my girl. And I think, honestly, she's completely underrated and underappreciated. She's, if not the leading voice on jazz, particularly in South Africa.
Definitely.
And for it to be a female voice at that, kind of her knowledge, her breadth, the depth of what she knows is untapped. And just as a broadcaster, man, she's top tier.
What an amazing drama this woman is. Her name is Sophia Goodman. She's a drama composer and absolutely pursuing a very sophisticated and very multi-dimensional vision of her music. This is taken off the album called Secrets of the Shore. It's a track called Skipping Stones. This is her and her group. Just loved the bassist, Leland Nelson, on that one.
Any advice for the current crop in the leadership and at the helm of this mighty organization?
Well, I think I'm really lucky and blessed to have had relations with I think, majority of the team. Kina, who's now the business manager, was the marketing assistant, actually. And we've always had that rapport. So it's literally a phone call away. And as I said again, off air, is, you know, at times, because of the passion, you don't stop loving Metro FM, right? So you find yourself starting to critique things and having to slap yourself to say, you know, stay out of it. But the lovely thing is about Gina and the team is that you can pick up that phone and say, you know, how about this? How about that? And I was saying this to Wilson as well, to say, you know, a couple of years ago, must be 14 years ago, where as a station internally, like any other family, and if you tell me you have a family that never is at loggerheads, then you're lying. Is where we literally took, I think it was two to 3 days, and went out to the Vaal, took the entire station on air, off air. We broadcast from there. And for the first time in my life, I had to be vulnerable to the entire team. Of course, I got in through the support of management, you know, experts, psychologists, you name it, to really get to the bottom of what the challenges were. And it is through that process and what happened there, we were able to put together, one of the things was just what we termed a wall of gratitude. And it was not management, it was the entire team. And I was telling Wilson, my heart, I was so touched. Walking back into the SABC last year and going to the Metro FM offices and still finding it there because it's so relevant. And really what it was speaking to, and this is the message to management, is that if everyone who walks through Metro can read that, even if there's a new one that's that's created or developed, it just reminds you to remember those that came before you, because they built this wonderful, mighty Metro, as some call it, years back with a certain vision, but with the passion and the belief that this is it, this is the pinnacle. And I think that's the one thing that will humble you and will ensure that every time you go behind that mic or you behind the desk, for those that are behind the desk, you remember the job that that you are currently doing and why you have to do it at the best of your abilities, if not 20 times more. And that, for me, that's the best advice, is that walk into that boardroom and read that, and you'll be reminded of what you need to do.
I'm so grateful that many of us have come into Metro and the public broadcaster at a time where there were torchbearers like the pair of you, who by example showed that this is the ethos, but more importantly, this is what the South African public expects of us. And I think it's a great responsibility. And long may the pair of you continue here at the public broadcaster to serve. And I've noticed the wall of gratitude. I think I'm actually going to look at it much more intentionally now as I head to Sabi. But thank you so much to the pair.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, station management.
Thanks, today was fun.
It's way adverts.
Yeah, like
Major colors, enjoy. Hey, sweetie.
Hello. My turn. 2 minutes. Eh, le rata le khidi yo.
My name is DJ Savage, the best than ever. Never alone. Got a massive, amazing team. Candace Kardashian, Owen Honey, Zanzibar. Good morning, team.
Good morning.
We've had to save the best for last, and if you're one of the 5 million strong listeners of the Mighty Metro, well, you certainly know what I mean when I talk about the best mornings. I have DJ Sabi, known to many, of course, or very few, I should say, as Sabelo Mjali. But yeah, he joins us for this segment, and also joined by an icon, a visionary, a pathfinder, and a pioneer in this journey of the Mighty Metro over the last 37 years. Ntate Khatebe joins us today as well. And yeah, to talk about from where we've come. And Ntate Kwes, I want to start off with you. Take us back 37 years ago. The then Suid-Afrikaanse Eetsai Corporatie moves in the direction of creating a commercial radio station for the urban African population. What does the SABC look like at that time, and what is the work that goes into setting up what becomes Radio Metro?
It's a very complex situation to try and actually, break it down for you. But I'll do my best. It was a very different SABC that was running its own course so differently and only, accountable to the Nationalist Party, so to speak.
Wow. So it was a state broadcaster at that time?
It was a state broadcaster at that time. So we, as the African language stations, were just elements, within this broader church of SABC, where we were actually just looking after our own languages, that we were broadcasting in. For instance, I was part of Radio Zulu, which was a Zulu broadcast station, and there were many other languages that were there. So all of a sudden they came and they said, Jew, we have an interest in starting an English station for the urban black population that does not want to listen to all the talk, to all the stories that are actually told on the African language stations, and all the religious programs and all of that. All that they need is just to listen to music. So we are actually envisaging a station of that nature.
How much of that pressure was from the competitive impulses that they were getting from Capital Radio and from the likes of Radio Bop?
To be honest with you, we as broadcasters, we never felt that because we were language-based and we did our best and we were actually drawing the listenership to our stations. We were very proud, we were actually leading. So it didn't affect us at all. But it affected the SABC one way or the other because they were looking at the market, they were looking at the revenue, they were looking at all other dynamics. But we were just focused on our own direction and we were comfortable that we were doing well. And we were doing well. I think Radio Zulu at that time had a lot of listeners, as they still have today.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's now, of course, the FM,
now,
but very much Radio Zulu back then.
Exactly.
But Brakwas, the process of setting up a new radio station of the sort that Radio Metro and later Metro FM became.
Yes.
Take us into your confidence. What did that involve?
Well, it involved quite a lot of things. Let me put it to you this way. I was a broadcaster myself, and they approached me. I never applied for the job because there was no job available. So they approached me to say, hey, Budi, just come to the 16th floor, out of the blue. And I went to the 16th floor, and normally the 16th floor there was Karel van der Merwe, one of the big boss of radio. And then my immediate boss was Tace Lowe, who was responsible for the African language stations, the Nguni type. So he says to me, come, we need to have a meeting. I said, what meeting? What have I done now? Because it's not an area where I operated necessarily. So I went to that meeting, and they told me the whole secret that this is what they are envisaging and they want to do. What do I think about it? I said, why ask me? I'm content with what I'm doing on Radio Zulu. I was a broadcaster doing sport and many other programs, and I was enjoying that. I had a lot of fans that were actually following my broadcast and all of that. So I said, maybe there's a scope. We could actually start it. I don't know where to start. But they said, no, but then we have identified you to be the person to actually lead this. I said, oh, what an honor. Let me go and think about it. So I took time off and I went home and I thought about this thing. And they said, no, but don't discuss it with anybody. You're still employed on nkosi or on Radio Zulu. So the time came 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the line. They said, we're having another meeting. This thing is starting to gain ground now. I said, okay, fine. And by that time, I'd already thought to myself and convinced myself that, yes, I can abandon my listeners and start this and be able to contribute towards black development and black empowerment one way or the other. This is an opportunity. I can't just sniff at it. I must just grab it with the velocity of a tiger. And I grabbed it.
You listen to Metro now. Do you find that some of those distinctive features and even sound of the Metro you started in '86 is still there?
Well, it is still there, but I've actually allowed an opportunity where, the evolution must actually be given its course to actually take place. I shouldn't expect it must be the same as what we started. It has to grow. It's a different market, different talent that is available now, it's different era of technology and all of those things. So it must evolve. I'm content with all of that.
And I guess, DJ Sabi, without that history, a lot of us wouldn't be on the platform now. I mean, you host, or you're part of the team that brings us the best mornings to millions of South Africans every morning. You would have been familiar with Metro long before you even joined radio.
Yeah.
Some of your own early recollections or reflections on what Metro was then and what you found when you came in.
Sure. So my early introduction to Metro, it was my neighbor, Ubongani Sbia, Emandeni. So Ubongani, every single morning, like literally he would be that guy, would open up, the door, turn up his techniques, kind of sets the mood for all of us in the streets. It was a crack of dawn, Eddie's on the 3 to 6. So that became the soundtracks of the morning. But Endlinu Mama used to listen to nkosi. So nkosi was one of those stations that played all the time. And I became that annoying kid that always changed the radio dial
to Metro.
To Metro. Because I fell in love with the music they played, the conversations. And, when I grew older and I wanted to be on radio and I made the decision that in English, my mom was very supportive of the journey and I'd always go to Metro and I'd always listen to this station. It kind of gave me access to what else is out there. You know, growing up in Mandeni, when it comes to the accessibility and what we're exposed to, it was kind of limited, and also your imagination was restricted because you had no idea what else is out there. And here's this pothole I had, or a window that I could tune into, and I felt like, wow, there's more out there. You know, it gets better.
Do you think we often understate the role in black society in South Africa that Metro played in creating those like transatlantic connections to music, culture and sound of other parts of the world? I mean, if you listen to much of the music that we play now, yes, a lot of it is local, but back then a big part of it was also connecting us with other musical currents in other parts of the world. Do we understate that?
I wouldn't say we understate it. I would say we take it for granted. Like for me, radio has always been a solution, be it I'm having a bad day, what else is happening out there in the world, or I could have missed out on something. Radio has just always been a timestamp of a moment. There's always a soundtrack to a moment, and I generally feel like we are aware of it, and probably that's why we hold radio stations close to heart when they make certain changes. It's like you're changing my furniture without consulting with me. I want that voice right there. I want that song to be played on Sunday. This is my expectation because you've had me get used to this. So when you change it, you're kind of messing with my routine. And you know what, while you're at it, this is my station. So people have that onus on the platform, and they truly are aware on the role it plays. And there's that serving, or that mandate that the platform offers in their lives, that they just want it to be like that forever. Hence, when they listen to probably the new generation, like when you asked the Goodman that question, sometimes the shadow of the past is always lingering on the new generation. You know, in a sense, which every single day we'll always hear about the era of Bob Mabena, Glenn Lewis, DJ Fresh, but there's a movement, there's a new dawn that's coming in. But unfortunately, that will always be always be part of the journey. You just keep it moving.
You there every morning?
Yes.
You know, people take kids to school and you the accompaniment. You're like a sibling to many people.
Yes.
And you've become a household name. But you've also, aligned to the tradition of many others who've come before you, working on the radio, doing television, doing many other things as well. Where do you see your imprint in that evolution of Metro and in that continuing legacy of this very, very impactful platform?
It's a big platform, and with everything the platform affords us to do, and before I even embark on any other opportunity that's presented, one of my core principles is whatever I do can't mess up with my center, and radio is my center. So this is where I deliver first. This is what I cater to first, and then everything else, because generally my first love is radio, and then through experience and with all the other opportunities, then you're afforded to do the TVs of this world and all the other opportunities that exist. But for me, it's exciting to even be offered this opportunity, because as a young kid, I've always wanted to be on Metro at the end of the day, and now to eventually live out that dream and to do breakfast, it's the backbone of the business. There's all these other things that really come into play when it comes to breakfast radio, but it's never to forget the reason why I even started, and that's just to consistently make people's days a little bit brighter, make their days a little bit lighter, make them look forward to a brand new day, because already you probably had a terrible day yesterday, but with the access to music and the team and as a collective, we really have an opportunity to make you feel a little bit more excited about this day that lies ahead. And one can't take for granted that this is not just serving one province. You're catering to an entire nation, and you have to consistently keep that balance. When it comes to the music, everyone needs to like it. The reference to conversations, it needs to cater to everyone, and it's not the easiest of challenge, but we come together as a unit and we bring what we call best mornings to the country.
Oh yeah? Brokwes, I want to bring you back here, because in 1986, you and the team you worked with then effectively created a platform that has had immeasurable impacts on the culture of South Africa. You speak to anybody in this country and even on the continent about Metro, and they know exactly what you're talking about. They can put a sound imprint to it. With what you did in those early days, introducing us to personalities that have certainly become a big part of who we are when we think about the culture in the country, what advice would you have for us in this generation, for Sabelo, DJ Sabi, as the torchbearers of this generation here on the Mighty Metro?
I've got great respect for what you guys are doing now, because you've actually adapted to the current situation, because the current audiences that you are serving are no longer the same as the audiences that we used to serve, because we had to build and groom an audience that we were going to take along with us over the years.
That wasn't there before.
That wasn't there before, because those audiences were actually aligned to their different language stations and all of that. One of the things that I always wish to emphasize is that even getting presenters to come on air and be able to speak in English, it was a very daunting task. People were afraid to come on air. Hey, what if I break the language and all of that? People were afraid. Hence, it was difficult to also get the appropriate talent to come over. Hence, I had to make time to go to different avenues to search for talent and convince people. There are people that actually went even to their houses to actually talk to their parents. Hey man, there's an opportunity. This person can do well on radio. Then they would ask you, how do you know? I said, no man, I've communicated with this person on the phone, and I can realize that here's a talent that could benefit our station. Let's bring it along. So that's how it actually went about. Because some youth were actually very scared of coming on air and speaking in English. But then, as time went on, people got used to it, got the hang of things, and they opened up. And that was also one of our prime objective, to actually elevate the standard of our people, one way, the standard and the confidence of our people, one way or the other. Hence, unlike today, I would really frown at a DJ coming on air and mixing the two languages, because we wanted to make sure that we use English, we actually grow the confidence of our people, even in speaking, because at that time, it is 1986, people were very reluctant. But we wanted them to open up and embrace this new evolution, and they did.
I'm actually, Prakwes, one of those people who mixes it up. So I certainly take the jab. But I think there's something fascinating that you're saying.
Different now. It's different now. People have already, got got the upliftment. We've got Model C schools that never existed that much those years. They didn't exist that much, and fewer people from our communities went to those schools.
Prakwes, what I find fascinating about what you've just said. Yes, it was important for us to build the confidence. But at a time when we were compartmentalized into our language groups, for Metro to come and play the role it did was nation building before nation building became a popular thing.
Correct.
And I think we must say to you, kudos for that.
Thank you.
Maybe just as we wrap up, if you could just give us from your institutional memory and archive, the one talent that gave you the most headaches. Who was that?
No, I wouldn't like to expose my talent. They were the best people that I've ever had.
Really?
They were amazing. They're amazing. I understood where they came from. So I did not want to actually play on their turf. I always wanted to exclude myself and exude myself from them and understand that I am their head. I'm their boss. So whatever games they can play, it doesn't matter. Let them play the games, because it makes them feel good. At the same time, they are delivering what I'm expecting them to deliver. They were amazing guys. They were not easy to handle, but I knew that I was not competing with them. That's the most important thing for a manager, to understand that you're not competing with your talent. Your talent has a role to play, and you have got a different role to play, and there's no comparison.
You must get the best out of them.
Get the best out of them. To the extent that sometimes guys would say, I'm not available to come to the slot today. I said, oh, fine. What's happening? No, I've got this and this and that commitment. And then I go to a function, which is not expecting that I'm invited. And here he is. He's actually the
MC.
Compare. He's comparing that event. But then to me, I wouldn't be angry about that. I said, here's an opportunity. He's talking to some of our listeners. I'll reprimand him, but I'll encourage him to continue doing these things. But let's do it formally.
Sure.
I'll support him, and I'll support them.
Prakwes, thank you very much. And talking about the best, Sabi, we have to wrap up here, but I can't let you go. As Metro evolves, where do you see it moving towards? And as you conclude your response there, we do need you to also close us out. We can't let you come here without giving us a closing link. So definitely.
For me, I think our current tagline speaks to where we're moving.
Yep.
For an institution like Metro FM, it's an institution where you'd like to be, and we all have an idea of where we want to be. And I think radio will forever play a role where whatever season or whatever happens in your life, we're there with you to either serve you with lessons or offer you information that will make that moment a little bit easier. We will always try our best to cater and to offer you those solutions during those moments, because that's just what radio is. It's that platform that seeks to make life a little bit lighter. So wherever you want to be, we'll be there with you. Hence we say right now, it's where you want to be. And I think that speaks to the future. So if 10 years from now, you see yourself there, we will be there with you, because that's where you want to be.
Link
so
us
I
out.
find
Link us out
that as exciting.
To that camera, to that camera.
Link us out of okay.
Yes,
what do you want me to say? What is the... Why am I stuttering right now?
Link us as you link us out on the best morning.
All right. Thank you very much for listening. It's been absolutely an honor to serve you every single morning between 6 and 9. Let's do it again tomorrow, God willingly, of course. Now go out there and be amazing.